It's daybreak on Arise News, time for the press preview, a first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. We begin with this day, and it's leading with NEITI 619.7 million barrels of crude oil, valued at 16.25 trillion naira, lost to theft and sabotage in 12 years. Appalling. The calls for a special panel on Glencore's scandal indicting Nigerian officials. A Bureau of Public Service Reforms rates MPA as platinum level organization, and that's a picture of President Joe Biden and Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari. They met earlier at the White House, the Oval Office, and the Northern Elders Forum are lamenting. They say people are being made to give up their PVCs, their voters' cards, for 2,000 naira. They're alleging voter suppression up north. And President Biden announces $350 million to facilitate digital transformation in Nigeria and across Africa. So moving on to other papers. The Punch newspaper. The Punch is leading with banks reconfigure ATMs, new naira enters circulation today. Okay, if you want some of those new babies, you can go to the bank. Bank officials complain of small allocations from CBN. Well, the CBN is going hard and not giving out the cash as they're supposed to. Failure to appear before reps over withdrawal limits. And World Cup, brave Morocco bow out to France in Doha. 2023 INEC budgets 117 billion naira for anti-hacking software and others. Federal government approves new whistleblower bill, cancels tax holiday. NNPC price slash fails to end field queues. And the federal government opens second Niger bridge today. Warns against speeding. Okay, you have to drive slowly, take it easy. Over now to the Nation newspaper. It's leading with this one. It says hiccups in permanent voters cards distribution. And that's the picture there, huge crowds in Minna, Niger State. The presidential candidate of the APC was there, but briefly. We wonder what happened. Perhaps we'll be talking about that later. Senate to CBN adjust cash withdrawal limits. The federal government okays whistleblower bill to strengthen anti-graft war. And the banks roll out redesigned naira notes today as JAMB, the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board, remits 50 billion naira to the federal government. We move over to the international papers. This is The Independent. It says, brave man blocks new routes to UK for refugees. Government accused of having blood on its hands after 4 die. The town gripped by the cost of living crisis and people fighting back. And over now to the Daily Telegraph. It says damage of nurses strikes will get worse. In the UK, the nurses have begun a historic strike, and it's unprecedented. Moving over to the Eye, please help us. Desperate plea from sinking migrant boat. Sad one there. And the Financial Times, Fed's half-point rate rise sets tone for slow squeeze on eve of Bank of England's decision. Okay, the Fed chair was speaking earlier, and it's raised by 50 basis points, but the Bank of England will be taking its own decision later today. I want to stick with the Rise News for it. Let's bring in Emmanuel Bello for the press preview. Good morning, Emmanuel. Welcome to the show. Let's look at this day and a story we could have touched yesterday, but we ran out of time. The Northern Elders Forum, they say people being made to give up their permanent voters' cards for 2,000 naira, and they're alleging voter suppression in the north. We're here talking about cash withdrawal limits. We've been talking about a free, fair, credible election, but how does it work? People pay you to take your voters' cards. Are they going to vote in your stead?
No, well, not really. They're not going to vote in anybody's state because it's not going to be easy. You can't take someone's PVC, for instance, and then go vote on their behalf. There was a time that was the mode of electoral fraud, but it's gone, the technology has dealt practically up with that. So what remains now, Kenneth, is for politicians, desperate politicians, to de-enfranchise people, basically to stop you from voting. That way they hope to reduce the number that anybody can get in the vote. And the North is seen as the bank vault of the country, or the bank, the vote bank of the country, because of the numbers. And this election is going to go down to that. It's going to come down to the problem or the issue of numbers. Which region has the highest number? Which politician is able to pull the highest number? Because it's to become the president of this country, you just have to have the largest number of votes. Basically, it comes down to that. Apart from the other spread that it's all about, and that's why I came in this story. Hakeem Baba Ahmed, leader of the Northern Elders Forum, is begging the North, practically begging the North that what remains for the North now is just that, the number. And it is that number that some people are targeting, and the way they are targeting that is taking away the voting power of people for 2,000 naira, saying, look, give us your vote. He's alleging that in one instance, or in most instances, they actually deceive the people. They say, give us your PVCs, we'll return them with greater value later. So the PVC has been monetized. It's now, most people think that, well, that's the best they can get out of their PVC. After all, they're not even sure of any kind of good governance. At the end of the day, they're not sure of any kind of compensation. They wonder why they should even vote for anybody in the first place. So someone is smart enough to tell them that if you sell these cards for 2,000 naira, that's the most you can get out of it, and we'll promise to give you more after the election. So it's an attempt at reducing numbers and not actually making people use those PVCs. I think in the past, that's possible, but now with the technology, the beavers technology in place, it's difficult. It will be practically almost impossible to vote on behalf of other people, or to use their PVCs. So the strategy will be to de-enfranchise people, to keep them away from the election grounds on election day, and to reduce numbers. So those who are doing this are targeting just that.
Emmanuel, I mean, the civil society is doing what they can, but has INEC done enough to educate voters?
Well, INEC is battling with its own demons, internal demons and internal crisis, and Professor Mahmoud keeps offering those reassurances that, look, you remember yesterday, we dealt with the stories of those carnages around burning up of INEC offices and all of that. So those are the sort of thing that INEC is dealing with. But they are giving their reassurances. The nation has a very robust story of those hiccups around the crisis of PVC. But in the story too, you see a lot of reassurances by INEC saying, look, they're on top of the situation, and that they are going to check on voters' fraud on election day. For instance, the practically inability to use someone's PVC to vote. That's on one hand. So what everyone worries about is, first and foremost, the crisis of those attacks around INEC facility. But INEC too has been saying that the essential material, or the meat and bone of this election has not been affected. It's just structures that have been raised down, and that the manpower or even the finances you'll be needing, or the readiness that is required by INEC for this election, that all that is intact, and that elections are not threatened in any way. Though they worry that the de-enfranchising of voters is part of the huge problem. The fact that people can't just turn out to vote on election day, probably because of insecurity, or even the sort of story we're looking at now, the fact that voters' cards are taken away from people for a pittance.
Speaking of worries, Emmanuel, citizens are concerned about the redesign of Naira notes. They're coming into circulation today, but there's still that issue of the cash withdrawal limit, the new policy which has been introduced by the Central Bank of Nigeria. We just listened to the Senate, and they're urging the CBN to walk back on that policy. We've discussed this before. Is this going to happen?
Well, yeah, but I don't know. The conversation around the withdrawal limits are still on, with serious arguments here and there. People, some saying that nobody actually needs 100,000 naira in their pocket in a week. Nobody is spending that much. But I think it's all an attempt to give us a more cashless economy. I think the big story for today is the one that Punch captured very strongly, which is the fact that today is the start of the new redesigned Naira notes. So people will be trooping to the banks this morning to see if they can get a glimpse of Kenneth, you call it the new baby earlier in your submission. So, well, that is the huge story, that today is 15th and the birthday of the new notes. Of course, the hiccups are already there. Banks complaining that they didn't get much of that kind of much of the redesigned notes. So people will still be getting basically the old notes. There are still legal tenders until next year, sometime in January, when it ceases to be the sort of thing, the official exchange note in the economy. But for today, a lot of people will be excited to see what those new designs look like. We've seen them basically already on pictures of them, but today affords a lot of Nigerians the opportunity of looking at it. So, but you expect a little bit of confusion, people not knowing whether it's the old notes or the new ones, and some kind of appreciation. So, in reporting, I think there should be the human angle to that discourse in reporting that, to see how Nigerians are reacting to the new notes, which starts today.
Well, as they roll out, Emmanuel, some would say that they buy less for you because of inflation. Over in the UK, the nurses are embarking on an unprecedented strike, and not just the nurses, some other unions.
Yes, but the UK is going through a whole lot. It's freezing, and it's practically the winter. They call it the winter of discontent with nurses, and unprecedented because of we're looking at all sorts of situations. When nurses are on strike, it affects a whole lot of things, because they are caregivers, and a whole lot of people depend on their services. So this is a terrible one. It's going to hit up what clearly is a crisis in the UK economy. Those freezing cold, and then of course you have nurses going on strike. It's not going to be easy for residents, certainly not for the elderly and those that really need a lot of care. And it's not just this, Kenneth. It's a whole range of strikes. Not the sort of thing that we associate with the UK, but it's happening now, and it's trying time for Sudan to see how it's able to address this. Not just to stop this, but to actually look at the demands of the nurses on how to, get the economy going again, especially the crisis of interest rates and the, cost of living crisis that they were already dealing with. And then on top of all of that, you have this, and those migrants issue again. It's a very tough one as they head into Christmas. The UK, we have to find ways, to make, to actually make society better for their people.
Well, that's all we can take this morning, Manuel. Thank you so much for your insight. That's the press preview. Let's hear your views and all the burning issues. Follow us on Twitter @AriseTV. You can join today's conversation using the hashtag AriseDaily.